Morning, everybody. Welcome to, well, Coffee and Questions. It's been quite a while since I've done any of these videos. The reason is work has been, well, really busy. So I work a full-time job like everybody else, and the rest of this is like a side hobby, DIY kind of a thing. Make a few extra bucks. You can see in my past videos, the reason why the boxes are all here is these are partially done like horseshoes or just used horseshoes, and I've got them all packaged up ready to ship to customers that order them from me, and they use them for artistic projects or coat hangers or a whole variety of things. And so I sell those. And somebody had made the remark to me like, well, some of the other tools that you use, do you always test like new stuff? And the answer is yes and no. Now, I'll explain, and I'll show you a project in a few minutes. I have an old antique dresser. It's easily over 100 years old, and the top of it got messed up, and trying to match the finish is, wow, it's an incredibly hard thing. But in the process of doing that, the question became on one of the forums, well, what kind of abrasives do you use? Because they're all different. You can get from Klingspor, you can get 3M. I mean, there's lots of manufacturers out there. I tend to stick a lot of times with Benchmark, and Benchmark abrasives, whether they're the flap wheels, the sanding papers, or they're cutoff wheels. The cutoff wheels I use on a lot of steel stuff. And I see if you can zoom in and see it better, or I'll give you the ad off Amazon. Both these products, I keep them on my watch list, and as I'm running low, like right now, they'll give you a break on these with a discount, and then I go ahead and I buy some, and they last me a while. So I have like a little inventory or what have you of them. But Benchmark's abrasives is one of my go-tos. I don't mind ordering them off Amazon. I don't need them right that second. Ships for free because I'm a Prime member, and well, when I end up with them and I use them, and I believe they're good products, they last a lot longer than most out there on the market. And I did have, I think it was some DeWalt cutoff wheels or Diablo, I forgot, one or the other, and in a very weird way, I guess, I matched these up. I don't see a big difference other than cost, so I stick with the Benchmark ones. And somebody said, well, yeah, but you could get them cheaper out at Harbor Freight. You can get them a little bit cheaper. I do use them. I mean, to be honest with you, I've got cutoff wheels from out at Harbor Freight, and I will use them, and I'll continue to use them. They're not that much cheaper when you get the Benchmark ones on sale. So that's, again, the reason why I kind of stick with these Benchmark abrasives. I mean, they're one of my favorites, I guess. So that was a question on the forum. I answered it there, and I figured I'd make a short video on that. Now, as far as the project itself goes, this is like a separate thing usually from what I do. I do wood turnings and I do, metal work and stuff like that. It depends on what the customer or whoever it is and what they're ordering from me. So this time around, I agreed, as long as there was no deadline or rush, I was going to go ahead and I would refinish this 100-year-old dresser, which for the most part wasn't going to be a hard task to do. The hard part was putting time into playing around with different stains to try to match the overall part of the dresser, which is in good shape. It was just the very top of it. And I'm going to pan around and I'll show you a picture of it right now. Okay, so that's the dresser top, and I'll try to show you a picture. It should be done in several days. And so how am I going to approach the finish on this? Now, the finish on the rest of this is probably lacquer, from what I can tell. I've done a couple minor experiments playing around. Lacquer will do the trick, and I'm going to spray it on, and not You could use the rattle can stuff, you know, get yourself some good stuff like, you know, Deft or something like that. What I have is I have from Watco, and again, I'll leave you some links below on this stuff. I really like this Watco lacquer. It's a nitrocellulose based lacquer, and this is gloss, which is what I ordered. And it really flows on real well. Now the nice part about lacquer is if you're spraying it, which I think you get the best control over it. Yeah, I don't even care if it says brushing lacquer. They'll tell you you can't spray brushing lacquer. Yeah, you can. Brushing lacquer is about the same as regular lacquer. It's probably 50% or so cut with, you know, lacquer thinner. But yes, you can spray it. I've sprayed it multiple times in little hobby sprayers as well as bigger sprayers. So on this project, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put probably 3, 4, 5 coats on there, and then I'll lightly rub it down on the top, and I'll put like a little maybe wax, maybe not. I'm going to wait and see how it matches up with the rest of the dresser. But that's the overall picture on this project. And so anyway, that's what I'm up to right now, and I'll try to play catch up with everybody going forward on, you know, more videos and on different products that I'm using. But for right now, the question related to sanding. And okay, the other question was like on this dresser, now, how high do you go? Well, okay, it depends on how damaged the surface is on top. Now, the surface on the top of this dresser, it was bad, blotchy. Really, I started off with a belt sander, and I used 120 grit. And I took it all down nice and level. Now, after that, I didn't use the belt sander anymore. I switched over to a Random Orbital, which I have right here. And this is by Bosch, okay? And again, I'll leave you the links below where I get the sanding discs. You know, for this. Now they tend to last a lot longer because I have a Krebs disc. Hang on, let me find it for you, I'll show you. Okay, this is a Krebs disc. This works exceptionally well on a belt sander, like if you're running it at full speed, and you take this rubber square, okay, and you drive it into it, it gets all of the crud and all the stuff that's locked in off of it for the most part. It enables the sandpaper to last much, much longer. Now on the Random Orbital, you can gently do that and scrub at it, and again, it'll get it clean, so you're not throwing away the sandpaper as quickly. But used sandpaper is used sandpaper. I mean, so when I switched over, like I said, I went from 120, and I try not to jump more than 50 or 60, you know, grits at a time. I went to 150, but when I went to the 150, I first sanded the top of that. After the belt sander, I went over it by hand with 120 with the grain. Then I cleaned it off real well, and I turned around, I started with 150 on the Random Orbital. I did the whole surface like that, and then again, I sanded with the grain real well with 150 by hand. And you can use a sanding block, whatever you have laying around. And then I use these dollar store reading glasses. It's usually 2 or 2.5 times. And I look real close at the wood grain. And I want to get out all the previous grit scratches before I go to the next grit. And I clean it off each time before I go to the next grit. And at the 150, what I did is after I got done sanding it and I cleaned it off, I wiped it down with mineral spirits and I let it dry real well. Okay, then I went to 220, and then eventually I ended and stopped at 320. I could have stopped at 220 because you're going to put a film finish on there. With a film finish, sanding way up into the higher grits, it doesn't really do any good at all, I don't believe. So I could have stopped around 220, but like I said, I went to the 320 and I got it nice and clean. And right now, as you can see from that past picture, it's just sitting there waiting to dry. Now, how long will I let it dry? Now, I'm out in desert cities, but I'm not in a rush, and you don't just put it on and then turn around and apply your finish right away. I let it sit and cure, or gas off, or whatever term you want to use, and I let it dry really well. So I'll probably wait 2 or 3 days, because out here it should be totally dried out. I'll clean it real well, I'll use a tack cloth, and then I'll go ahead and I'll start spraying my lacquer. The reason, or another reason I really like spraying the lacquer is in one way kind of unique, because after I spray on a coat, I let it dry. Initially, it could be 45 minutes or an hour. I can then apply another coat. Each coat will burn into the previous coat, and you'll start to build up a layer of lacquer. And then you kind of use your own judgment as you go along. I've got some wood turning projects. I probably put 6 or 7 coats. I have other projects where I've only put 1 or 2 coats on. For me, each project kind of stands independently on its own on how I approach it. Sometimes I put different kinds of finish on there, maybe just an oil finish sanded in, maybe I use polyurethane, sometimes I use different wood dyes, and I experiment around doing a lot of different things, and we've talked about that in other videos, and I will talk about that and more going forward. But I hope that answers the questions for today. It's like, where you been? What's going on? Well, time off, because of work. But I'm slowly starting to get back into doing more videos. So I hope you stick around. Drop me a comment, ask me a question. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. You folks have a great day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.